As always, donate to Jumpstart. Jumpstart helps economically disadvantaged kids play team sports, which is something that's near and dear to Rachel and I's hearts. So if you go to the links in this description below, pretty much all the information that you will need to donate is there. So we really encourage you, if you can, to do so. Again, it's a great cause. We love Jumpstart. They are our charity of choice. If you can, please donate.
We are back. It is a girly pop podcast. Welcome to Puck Social. I'm Rachel, and I'm joined by Lyss of Chel Chit Chat and Winnipeg Sports Talk. And the Jets are in the playoffs, which means Lyss is doing crazy things. She got to interview Dmitry Filipovich and Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick. Things are absolutely wild, Lyss. What is happening, girl?
My phone, not gonna lie, guys, ringing off the hook lately. Everyone wants to talk Winnipeg Jets, and I am always fired up to do exactly that. So we're gonna be doing a little bit of that today, but there's so much going on in hockey in the NHL right now that I love this opportunity to come, obviously, chat with Rachel, because it's one of my favorite things to do, but also to talk a little bit more just beyond the scope of the Winnipeg Jets, because when you're a yapper like me, holy smokes, can you get into your own head about, oh my gosh, I feel like I've said this exact same thing 3 times, but you're on a different radio show or you're doing a different interview, so you're like, oh, but these people haven't heard it yet, so maybe I'm not repeating myself, and you just go through these crazy motions and whatnot. But 2 games into the Jets series so far, we're having a blast.
Oh, yeah, and, let's be so for real right now. The people that listen in, Edmonton when you're on Edmonton radio, not the same people listening in Winnipeg, or not the same people listening in Toronto. I get that same thing where I'm like, I said this the other day, but, the odds that someone heard it are, so slim and none. And if somebody has heard it, it means that they're, listening to way too many hockey shows.
Yeah. They need to touch grass, I guess. But I appreciate
go
the
outside.
Love. Thank you. But come on.
Exactly. All right. So one of my favorite things about the playoffs that isn't the actual playoffs is the WAG Jackets. And the WAG Jackets have kind of become this phenomena in the sense that it started as, I believe, Lauren Oshie, because she had one of the only public Instagram accounts as a wife of a player. And she was posting what they were wearing to hockey games. And when I worked for the Devils in 2018, they didn't really do WAG stuff, except we got to the playoffs and it was super last minute because we qualified on the second last day of the year. And so it kind of started with Lauren Oshie posting, and then all of a sudden I feel like more WAGs picked up on it, and because there's this influencer thing, and if you haven't listened to the episode I did about being a WAG influencer, I suggest you go back and listen to it, because we're going to touch on a lot of those things. But I feel like the WAG Jackets play into the fact that a lot of them want to be influencers now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a good pinpoint, because you're totally right. I feel like the emergence of them, I have a lot of recency bias with this sort of stuff just because I've become so much more locked in the last couple of years, where I was a bit more passive before that. But it really does feel like even this year, for I feel like most years we get a little bit of a glimpse beforehand or whatever, but now it feels like an actual marketing campaign where it's the teasers of the jackets are coming from specific accounts at specific times, and then the drop happens at once and everyone posts their videos at the same time. It's turned into a collective thing, whereas before, I was joking to Rachel offline, it was there used to be every team had 1 or 2 wives who were public on Instagram, and those were just the accounts that everyone would go to for insider information on personal player injuries and updates, and just trying to catch snippets of them outside of what you get from regular media avail. And that's how you would find out about these sorts of things. And you'd get one team photo posted on the team account of the wives' jackets, and then that was it. But it's turned into this whole thing, and honestly, I kind of love it. I think it's hilarious, and like Rachel said, definitely go back and listen to that episode. I won't rehash the whole thing, but I'm super supportive of these women kind of finding creative outlets and ways to, whether it be monetize or find meaning or develop different hobbies and stuff like that, that are flexible and can fit within the craziness that is the life of being the partner of a professional athlete. I love it. I'm all for it. And we're well underway in the playoffs here, and we have game 3s coming up starting tonight and later this week, which means we're getting the next set of WAG Jackets coming up soon for these new teams that are going to be having their home games coming up here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I mean, Lauren Kyle was just wearing, she started this Sports Club Atelier, which I don't know. Anything with the word atelier in it is high end, high class. It's very Ralph Lauren esque, I would call it. And so she was wearing one because her and Madison Brown went to LA for game 1 and 2, but she actually on her Instagram story was like, WAG Jackets coming soon. This isn't it. And it's like, oh my God, now we're getting like literal teasers of the WAG Jackets. Like it's crazy.
It's a thing.
But okay, so here's my thing. And Shayna Goldman makes a ton of like really great upcycle stuff. Like I absolutely love it. I'm having her make something for me. I know she made the vest for you, and that vest is like one of my favorite things
So good.
of Jets. I think Fanatics, NHL teams that partner with whoever would do well to make jackets of the WAG vein. Like, obviously not with players' last names on it, but do something like what Shayna is doing, because the women's apparel for Fanatics is, compared to, like, a leather jacket, a puffer jacket, like, FE apparel is fantastic. They have really cool stuff. But, like, the actual NHL licensed apparel is bad. Like, it's not even, it's not wearable at all.
No, I totally agree. And I mean, I feel like we've talked about this extensively too, where it's just like, look at what other brands that have licensing rights are doing and see what their, how people are using their clothes and what type of user generated content you get out of their stuff compared to yours. And I feel like that should answer enough of your questions. Like, the problem though is at the end of the day, you go to like these websites that make this like awesome merch and stuff like that, and it's like, oh, this jacket is beautiful, north of $200 every time, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's right. Like it is hard in terms of like Fanatics. I feel like falls definitely into that category. They're like, okay, how can we cut the most corners to make the cheapest merch possible, and then people will buy more. Fair enough, but I feel like you need a little bit of a different option as well. And like you mentioned, I have a Shayna Goldman vest myself. That is my pride and joy. I love it so much. Did it cost more than a t-shirt from Walmart? Yeah, it did. Will I get wear out of that thing for the rest of my life? Also, yeah. And I feel like you have to look at these things like investment pieces as well. Like that's, if you're leaning into the team that you love, and if you think that you're going to love this team forever, which most hockey fans, that's how it goes with fandom of being a team, like, run with it. Go get the jacket that you want, because you're never going to get some awesome creative innovative piece for cheap. That's just, those two things don't go together. But I feel like there could be a little bit of a gray area that you blend in between, where it's like not breaking the bank for something that's a little bit more, it's cooler than just a pink logo t-shirt and calling it a day for women's apparel.
Exactly. Like, I remember when the Leafs Drew puffer jackets came out. I got gifted one of them. And even if I didn't get gifted one, I was going to buy one anyways, because number one, it's a winter jacket. And so that's immediately useful if you live in Canada or the northeastern seaboard in the United States. And number two, that jacket is super cool. It's unique. It's different. It's practical. Like, hockey is played in a cold arena. Newsflash. And so wearing it is super practical. And then, like, my FE apparel, I have a Winnipeg Jets, like, old school Jets logo bomber jacket, and it's super fun. I loved it. And then I have a Leafs reversible vest, and that apparel is super fun. It's reversible, so you can go like plain, but you can also go like fun. And I just think that there are ways, like you said, you don't have to break the bank every time, but like the crew hoodie from FE Apparel is like $80. Well, if the Fanatics hoodie's $75,
exactly,
and like the FE Apparel one is not only better quality, it just looks nicer too.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, like if it's good, and that thing, like, I've worn my hoodie probably like 40 times, it still looks brand new out of the wash. Like, and that's the thing, is when you buy high quality clothing, it lasts longer. I have, get this, Liz, the Roots leather varsity jackets?
Yeah.
I have one that was made in 2000. It is 25 years old. So if you look at it over the lifespan of the jacket, yeah, that's an investment piece up front. That jacket was probably like north of $500. Okay, what are we talking about? $20 a year at this point?
Right, exactly. That's how I justify all of my Aritzia and Babaton and Wilfred purchases, where it's like I was wearing through black t-shirts like nobody's business. Like I'd be like, these look cheap, and then, they rip super easily, and then it's like, okay, but you buy a $60 t-shirt and you wear it literally in 2 outfits per week, and they last for years. And I'm like, okay, if you want to go like talking about dollar for dollar here, like sometimes investment pieces are worth it. And I feel like we are kind of entering an era like beyond fast fashion, in the sense of I think people are starting to understand that a little bit more, where it's like at the end of the day, just a black t-shirt, there is a difference between a $5 black t-shirt and a $50 black t-shirt. Like there's a reason why those prices are a little bit different for the most part, and you can get a little bit more usage out of those more expensive things. So I think it's just important that you recognize that you can get all these different, more expensive basic pieces, or these investment pieces we're talking about, like the jackets and whatnot, but like you can buy them in the same quantity as you were buying the $5 t-shirts before, because you're not wearing through these old ones as fast, and they're also more expensive. So I feel like it should add up to about kind of the same amount in the aggregate over years, right? Because you're not having to replace things as much, but you're not also getting to go on a shopping spree once a week.
Exactly, that's the thing, is like I could go to Walmart or buy it off Amazon or whatever, and it's one thing, but like and you know this about me, like I wear a lot of Hugo Boss suits, and I yes, of course I go to Germany a lot, so I get them in Germany and they're domestic, but like okay, they, by the time exchange is done, they're like, we'll call them $1,500 a piece. Okay, well, when I was in university, I used to wear Banana Republic suits because we had to like wear suits to class every day, and I wore through those things in like 2 or 3 years. Okay, well, those are like $400-500 a piece. So over the course of 10 years, I'm at the same price point. My Hugo Boss suits, I have like 8 of them, are like 10, 11 years old now, and they look brand new. And my mom, the reason I got this idea is because my mom has suits. My mom is going to be 60 in a couple of years, and she has suits that she bought when she was 28 years old, and they still look the same. Like, this is the thing, is if you invest in those pieces, and I get it might not be feasible right off the hop, but in the long term, like if you save up for it, it's going to significantly reduce what you're going to buy in the short term. And then like you look at getting back to the WAG jackets, like, okay, it's not like these people are poor. Let's also be so for real with this. Like, their significant others are paying for their jackets, for the most part, unless like they have a job, which a lot of them do not. But you look at this, and a lot of those stuff, like a lot of those pieces are statement pieces, and they're really nice, and maybe they give them to their friends. Maybe they wear them to regular season games, because they really only get WAG jackets made during the playoffs. And so like I've seen Steph Marner wear the playoff jacket from last year during this year's season, just like out and about.
Yeah, totally. Because, I mean, what else are you going to do with it, right? And I love that. And I feel like if we're talking a little more specific about the WAG jackets, I feel like we've gotten to this point where they've become a bit more of a thing. We're talking about how, it's been a work in progress, where every year I feel like we get a little bit more into the WAG jackets, and it's become kind of a rite of passage at the beginning of the playoffs now, and we make jokes about those wild card teams and the rush orders they're probably placing and all that sort of stuff. But I feel like they've really hit a sweet spot where obviously everyone goes online and they share their opinions on those jackets, as they should. I gotta say, I don't think we've had any misses this year. I feel like these ladies have really gotten the hang of what these are supposed to look like, and I feel like this year, maybe, sometimes people can say they could be lacking some creativity, or they can look like some old ones they've seen in the past, but at the end of the day, there's only so many cute ways to make a sports-themed jacket, and I feel like this year we have some really, really cute ones.
Yeah, I did the Ottawa Senators ones that came out in just before Game 3. Those things are absolutely stunning, and the fact that there are matching children's jackets is even cuter. I saw, I'm friends with Micah Mattio's wife, so I saw hers, and then I know the Kachucks posted theirs. I think the Sens absolutely killed it for being back in the playoffs for the first time in 8 years. And then I know one that we both like is the Lightning one. I think they absolutely
like
knocked
that
that out of the
one.
park.
I think those ones are awesome. I love it when they incorporate like little elements. Like the Lightning one has their like little established, what would it be, 1992 one kind of on the breast, right? Like there's different things, and I like you're not as big of a fan of the Carolina Hurricanes one as I am. I like the Hurricanes one just because I love the trucker caps that they're all wearing with it and turning it into more of like an outfit. I love it when there's like an additional piece, and that's my hot take actually, is that I feel like as we continue to see the evolution of the WAG jacket, we talked about how it's like, okay, like the launch is like a new thing, and there's so much stuff that's like continued to progress with these WAG jackets. I think we're going to start to see more like WAG outfits in the future, like where maybe it's like the boots or like sneakers. I know sneakers are a big one this year too, where they have little numbers in the sneakers, or I feel like we might see more than just the jacket, where it's like maybe some cute boots or like some really cute pants. I've seen, obviously my circles are pretty focused and hyper focused on Winnipeg Jets and then their adjacent spaces, but some of the Jets and Moose girls have done a really nice job with like cute shoes, cute jeans this year. I've seen some really cute jeans and DIY stuff that I've really liked, and I feel like that might be the future, is like more than just the jacket and turning it into more of like a fit.
Yeah, and the thing is like I think the actual design of the Jets jackets is super, super clean and like nice. I like the leather, and I get that like pure white leather is not the move in terms of like Winnipeg Jets, and so like the as a jacket itself, if we remove the white out from it, I would straight up wear that jacket. I think it's stunning. But the Winnipeg whiteout is a thing, and you need to be a part of it. You don't get to stand out in the whiteout. That's not a thing. So like I think that side of it, like I as a fashion piece, I think that jacket is utterly stunning. It is beautiful. But you literally went against what the team is doing.
I feel like it's white enough. I agree. And it's really funny because it has like so for those of you who maybe haven't seen it, it's got like it's very much Pilot
the color of my
brand,
current sweater,
and it's the color of Rachel's current sweater. They're like cream colors, but they have like a white nameplate on the front that has like the Pilot name, which is like the player slash boyfriend slash husband name, which is super cute. But it's just really funny because the little nameplate is white, and you're like, oh, that's, and so the contrast of the white on the cream, you're like, oh, that's really not a white jacket, but. It's white enough. It's white enough. I think it's okay, and I feel like I've seen far too many dark blue Jets jerseys in and around Winnipeg spaces this year for me to be complaining about a cream jacket. If you're wearing a blue Jets jersey, stop it. I don't care if it's signed by Connor Hellebuck himself. Wear the white Walmart t-shirt. I don't even care. Buy the $60 white Aritzia t-shirt if we want to circle back to the old conversation so that you can wear it for future years as well. But wear white. Come on, guys.
Yeah, and I think the Jets should be wearing white at home, too, during the
playoffs.
Oh,
see, I disagree with that take.
No?
Okay,
why?
I'm obsessed with how they look as a contrast to the white ice and the white crowd. Like, the photos and the pictures, like, they just stand out and they are the focus. Like, I think it looks beautiful. I love it. I think it's so cool. Like, to me, St. Louis in this situation, because that's who they're playing, just, like, blends right into the crowd. Whereas I feel like the Jets and the players really pop. So I like the dark at home, personally.
Okay, that's fair. I think part of me says wear white at home because of the whiteout, but the other part of me says if you're gonna wear the dark jersey, wear the other dark jersey.
Oh my gosh. Well, now we're talking, oh my gosh, today, Scott Arniel, in his media availability before the team traveled to St. Louis, was wearing a Heritage zip-up instead of a regular Jets one, and I literally almost, like, dropped my phone when I saw that. I was like, oh my gosh, but then I went and scrolled through everything else, and everyone else is wearing regular Jets stuff, because the team does a really good job of they all wear Heritage branded merch when they're going through the cycle of the Heritage jerseys over the course of the year, because they'll have like 3 different homestands where they'll wear them for a couple games, and then they turn all the branding into Heritage logos. So I saw Scott wearing that and I was like, oh my gosh, but everyone else was wearing regular Jet stuff. So I was like, okay, maybe he just really wanted to wear a different outfit today, and I respect him for it because it's a great kit.
Honestly, if you're doing the whiteout, go all the way back and do like the Heritage jersey. I think the Heritage jerseys at home in the playoffs would be nasty.
I think it would net the Winnipeg Jets in the aggregate like 3 extra wins. Dead ass. I think that's how fired up people would be about it and how great the energy would be.
And the merch they would sell.
And the merch they would sell.
Like, Mark Chipman's like, we need to get butts in seats, or I don't know what we're going to do. I have an idea, Mark. You know what? Lyss and I, put us in charge. we are rocking and rolling. We're gonna make you like an extra $2 million a series on merch, just
Give
because
me
all of a sudden
3 nitro cold brews and the title of CMO for a day. You guys have no idea what I can do.
it. Honestly, I vouch for that. Like I love it. And then I'm trying to think of like what other we haven't seen. What's interesting is, at least to my knowledge, I have not seen the Leafs WAG Jackets yet, and they've played 2 games at home.
Yeah, I haven't
Now,
either.
I also know that the Leafs WAGs, because Ottawa is literally a 4.5-hour drive from Toronto, are all going to the games in Ottawa.
Right.
And something tells me they're not going to be the only Leafs fans there.
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's gonna be nuts. I was actually impressed by how many Leafs fans I saw at Scotiabank. Because, like, listen, I understand that there are more Leafs fans than there are Sens fans, don't get me wrong, but, like, just the spillover and how close those two arenas are together, I have a feeling it's going to be pretty blue in the CTC when we start Game 3, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that we haven't seen the WAG Jackets makes me wonder, like, are they revealing them in Ottawa? Like, are they trying to steal the thunder? Creating, like, a rivalry between the WAGs? That would be kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, see, that would, like, spill into this thing of, like, the evolution of it, where it's, like, it ties into, like, I don't know, there's just, it's turned into more, and I love the more. Bring it on. Whatever the more looks like, I'm here for it.
All right, so Mike and I said we were going to do this last week, and Lyss and I are going to have some fun with it. We're going to pick one guy on every single playoff team who we want to win the cup, whether it's like an old guy, in my case, somebody I've like either worked with or know. The one exception is the Florida Panthers. They won last year. Too bad,
Ugh.
so sad. You're not a part of this.
Don't care, yeah.
Yeah, nobody cares about you.
Yeah, I looked through the roster because I was trying to do this, and I was like, there's no one on here. Most of them have a cup because they don't have a very different roster from last year. And then some of the guys they did bring in, either I don't care about enough or they already have cups. So it's like, all right, what are we going to do? But I have 15 other ones that I'm fired up about. I'll give my disclaimer first. My rule for myself was that everyone had to have an age that started with a 3. So I have a lot of players that I really like on a lot of these teams who are younger and whatnot, but I'm like, I'm going to go with, like, guys who are, like, not that this is their last shot by any means, because some of these guys are still huge impact players for their teams, but, like, more the guys who have been in the show for a little while now, and I'd love to see them get some hardware this year.
I have, like, one guy who's under 30, and then, like, a couple of people that I've actually, like, worked with. Mm-hmm. Which, like, obviously there's an inherent cheering happening there. And so, honestly, thank God Vancouver's not in the playoffs, because, the answer there would be, like, Elias Pettersson, Brock Besser, and nobody else. 0 other people. All right, let's go. Do you want to do the West or the East first?
Let's go with the East, just because we'll already knock Florida off out of there, and then we'll go through the rest of them.
All right, so let's start with Tampa then, because that's who they're playing.
Okay, my answer for Tampa is Cam Atkinson. That's a guy that I have some kind things to say about him. Like, I think he seems like a really great guy, and he's, been through the ringer with some injury stuff and whatnot. It'd be nice to see him get a chip under his belt. He's been a huge part of some leadership groups with some teams in the past, so I think it'd be nice for him.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, with Cam Atkinson. He's gone through waivers a couple times this year. He dealt with a whack ton of stuff in both Columbus and Philadelphia. I think that he's just somebody that seems like the consummate professional. Talking to people in hockey, like, I know people who have been his teammate who say, like, he's just such a great human being. The other guy on Tampa Bay, I will say, is Brandon Hagel, and that's simply because that man was a menace at the Four Nations, and I think he deserves to be rewarded for his menacing behavior on behalf of Canada.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I got a buddy who's got some money on a Brandon Hagel Conn Smythe, and hey, if he cashes in some 5-figure payout there, I'll be pretty impressed.
Mike?
Yeah.
Yes!
Of course.
We love Mike Bartner on this show. That man is wild. Okay, let's go to the other Atlantic Division series. I'm gonna get this out of the way. I want the Toronto Maple Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. All of them, every single one.
Oh, see, this one was actually kind of hard for me, and then I picked Scott Lawton immediately because I was like, you know what, I really like Scott Lawton. I feel like anyone who exists on like online circles and whatnot knows that like he's just a really likable fella, and he's been a really good activist for a lot of different causes in the community and stuff like that. And he's a guy I'd love to see win a cup. I am big fan of Scott Lawton, and he's a guy who was a trade deadline acquisition, big chip, and didn't really work out for the Leafs for the first little bit, but it looks like he's going to start to cook. So hopefully, if they're going to win, that'd be a guy I'd be happy to see take that one home.
Yeah, you know what? I agree there. Like Scott Lawton's work off the ice, it straight up makes him a really good human being. And I think on this show as a whole, we cheer for good human beings.
Exactly.
We just talked about Cam Atkinson, and Scott Lawton certainly fits that bill. On the Ottawa Senators, who you got?
It's got to be Claude Giroux. I feel like that's the answer, right? Like that's well, what a beauty of a guy, and I'd love to see him win a cup. Obviously, like with everybody else on this list that we've said and will say.
Yeah, like I mean, the guy is from Ontario, and Hearst, I believe, is closer to Ottawa than it is to Toronto, and he's wanted to play in Ottawa.
Up to snuff.
Yeah, and I think when you look at it, like once again, Claude Giroux, pretty close to being a Hall of Fame type of player. He's been really close to a couple Olympic teams, and when you're in the hunt for the Canadian Olympic team, you're a good hockey player. Like you're a star at that point. And they got really close. That was, I believe, the Patrick Kane Stanley Cup winning goal was scored against the Flyers. That was like super weird.
2010.
But, yeah, so that would have been Claude Giroux's like rookie year or whatever.
Probably, God.
I like Claude Giroux. I mean, his kiddos are so cute. His wife's adorable. Like that whole family situation. And there's something to be said for winning near your hometown. I think that there's just an added thing to that, and I'd really love to see him win. And the other guy, I will say, he's a bit of a younger guy, but the German in me can't ignore it. I'd love to see Tim Stützle win the Stanley Cup, especially with how close Draisaitl got last year. I'd love to see the Stanley Cup go to Germany. I think that as a nation, obviously we're a soccer nation, but sneaky kind of investing in hockey, and I think a German bringing the Stanley Cup there would do wonders in terms of driving interest for the grassroots level, and so I think that could just have a positive impact on hockey as a whole.
100%, yeah, I agree.
All right, let's go to the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, same thing. I picked a couple of guys who have been on some really competitive teams in the past, but never have managed to lock up the Stanley Cup, and Brent Burns and Freddie Anderson, two guys who are just phenomenal hockey players, and Brent Burns especially, maybe not at his peak form as he once was, but that's a guy who, part of the reason why the California Gauntlet was a thing and why, San Jose Sharks are hard to play against, Brent Burns is a legend, and I'd love to see him, hoisting a cup. I think it'd be a pretty great photo to see, and we know Freddie Anderson has had some struggles as well, and I'd love to see him win a cup. So if Carolina were to make it all the way, those are the two guys I'd be super happy for. And then if we're sneaking into the maybe not so old guys category here, got to give a shout out to my hometown boys Seth Jarvis and Jordan Martinook. I'd love to see those guys bring one back to Winnipeg as well.
Oh, we love Seth. I'm gonna go with the guy that I worked with. And the guy that's just been super kind to me for a very long time, Taylor Hall. Between injuries and trades and his agent being a complete dumbass, he's had a lot of ups and downs, and he's really found his spot in Carolina, and I would absolutely love to see him win. The other thing I'm going to say about the Carolina Hurricanes is I'd love to see Eric Tulsky win the Stanley Cup as a general manager.
I agree.
Because, oh my goodness, would that upset the apple cart of we'll call it the hockey men. There was a great piece by James Myrtle in The Athletic detailing the Carolina Hurricanes front office and how it has people with like PhDs in neuroscience and nanotechnology, and it just goes to show that you need to think outside the box. And I think that Eric Tulsky winning a Stanley Cup as the architect of the Carolina Hurricanes would do wonders and open doors And it would kind of force people in the NHL to realize that they need to think outside of just like their 200 friends, and try and find somebody who is sort of best suited for the role, and it might not be because they have hockey knowledge.
Yeah, I think the Carolina Hurricanes are the most interesting organization in the entire NHL. I'm fascinated by a lot of their ownership and decision making, so I totally agree with you on Eric Tulsky there.
Yeah, I love it. Okay, New Jersey, their opponent. Who you got?
I'm going to go with Brendan Dillon. Again, another guy with a Winnipeg connection here. He spent a couple seasons here in Winnipeg, and nothing but good things to say about the guy. Everyone who has ever spent any amount of time with him only has glowing reviews about the guy, and, he was super heartfelt in his return to Winnipeg, and so many good things to say about him. Also a really good defenseman, really good hockey player, and would love to see him also bring a cup home.
Yeah, I mean, that's super fair. Outside of the guys that I obviously worked with, Nico and Jesper, who, I mean, I would absolutely, I would love to see them win. Sheldon Keefe is the guy. I think he took a lot of flack in Toronto for things that were not necessarily his fault. And I mean, given the injuries that he dealt with, like Nico Hischier missed time this year, Jack Hughes is obviously out. Now they're missing 3 of their top 4 defensemen. I would love to see Sheldon Keefe win a Stanley Cup. Maybe not in New Jersey, obviously, but one day I would absolutely love to see Sheldon win a cup. And I think New Jersey is in deep trouble now that they're playing without Siegenthaler, Dillon, and Luke Hughes.
100%.
All right, let's go Washington.
Washington, there's a ton. I'm gonna start with again. I'm sorry to keep doing this, but Dylan McElrath is a guy who has been bouncing back and forth between the NHL and the AHL for most of his career, and isn't playing overly meaningful minutes with the Washington Capitals by any means, but is a guy I'd love to see have his name etched on the Stanley Cup. Winnipeg guy, and another kind of off the board pick is Nick Dowd. Nick Dowd is from Alabama, and I think bringing the Stanley Cup to the state of Alabama would be really, really interesting. The guy's from Huntsville, and I think that I love it when players who are born and bred in unconventional markets can succeed in the NHL. That is what I live for. So I would love to see that. And then I also got to give a shout out to my favorite hockey player in the whole wide world, my boy Pierre-Luc Dubois. I'd love to see him win a cup. It'd be hilarious if amid all this that the Washington Capitals are the team to win and get a cup out of the Patrick Laine Pierre-Luc Dubois sweepstakes of 2021. But those are kind of the 3 guys there. I am rooting for Washington to come out of the East there. Not that I think they're going to, but there's a lot of guys I really like on that group.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the guys that I want to win have already kind of won, like Logan Thompson.
Exactly.
Obviously, Ovi.
Yeah.
Was super cool. But Nick Dowd was my guy as well. For all the reasons that you stated. I also think him and Nick Waugh in Vegas are the best 4th line centers in the NHL. I don't think they can play 3rd line center, but I don't think you're going to find a better 4th line center. Like, they do everything you want them to do. And they're just consummate professionals. The other guy I would absolutely love to see win a Stanley Cup is Andrew Mangiapane. He's small. He's been doubted his entire career, going back to the OHL. And he's just kind of somebody who's plodded along and found a way. And whether he was on the top line in Calgary, now he's on the 3rd line in Washington. He's just kind of been one of those guys that's found a way to get it done. And I really admire him. So I'm going to go with Andrew Mangiapane. All right, Montreal, as if they don't have enough Stanley Cups as a franchise.
This one was hard for me, especially because in my head I was going with this like over 30 rule or whatever, and I was like, Mike Matheson seems like a great guy. Beyond that, I'm not overly inspired by the Montreal Canadiens, and there's no one in that group that I'm like dying to see win a cup other than my boy Patrick Laine, but his time will come and I'm not concerned. So I'm gonna go with Mike Matheson for my over 30 pick. I really liked him when he was in Pittsburgh, and he seems like an interesting guy. I love listening to Montreal media speak about him and kind of the different aspects of his game and the different situations in which he excels, and then other situations where he can get totally exposed, which is, he's a fun player to talk about that's not fun in the same conventional ways that some of the All-Stars are and whatnot. So I've always kind of enjoyed Mike Matheson, and I'd like to see him win a cup. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Brendan Gallagher. And I'm only going. Let put it this way, I'm only going with Brendan Gallagher because Carey Price doesn't count. Carey Price would unequivocally be my
Oh my
answer.
God, yeah.
If he were an option. But Brendan Gallagher lost his mother to brain cancer very recently. There was a story about the lady giving the last jersey from Hockey
Yeah.
Fights Cancer Night because those jerseys aren't allowed anymore. Thank you to the Stahl brothers and Ivan Provorov for that. I hope you step on Legos. But I mean, I look at it, and anytime you lose a parent and you continue to play hockey or you continue to live as a human being, and perform at high levels, is commendable. Brendan Gallagher has been taken an absolute beating for the Montreal Canadiens for years now. He's played on everything from the first line to the fourth line. He's really kind of found his way. It sounds like he's really mentoring guys like Slavkovsky and Lane Hudson and Cole Caulfield and Arbor Jackeye, taking them under his wing, making them feel welcome. Patrick Laine, the same thing. And he's dealt with a lot of crap in his career, and I'd love to see Brendan Gallagher have success. So I'm going to go with him. And that finishes off the East. Let's go with the West. Lyss, who on the Winnipeg Jets do you want to win the Stanley Cup?
Same thing as goes for you, like you said with Toronto. Especially getting to know some of the guys a little bit, kind of casually over the last little bit, and getting a closer look at the team in these past few years and months. The answer is all of them for sure. Like I would love to see them all succeed, and more than anything, I'd love to see it for the city of Winnipeg. And some of the core pieces like Connor Hellebuck is obviously kind of like the easy answer there, just because that is a Hall of Fame goaltender if I've ever seen one play in my life. But I think you need a little bit of that Lord Stanley hardware to kind of solidify your case, and if he gets his third Vezina this season, obviously that's a pretty compelling case, but I think a Stanley Cup would go a long way for him. But my kind of off the board pick is going to be Dylan DeMello. Dylan's an awesome guy and has been such a big part of this team for the last couple of years. To this day, depending on how this Gabe Velarde upcoming deal works out and what his career looks like, I'm still going to say that the Dylan DeMello trade is the best trade of Kevin Cheveldayoff's tenure. That's a guy that was brought in just before the pandemic, and listen, like, unspeakably good things to say about his performance on the ice and how he's stepped up into that 1B role and turned Josh Morrissey. Obviously, Josh has been the biggest part of his own growth, but that pairing has become a legitimate top pairing for an NHL team and a cup contender, which is just unbelievable. And Dylan's just an awesome guy. So that's who I'd like to see get a cup here on the Jets.
Speaking of that defensive pairing, my guy is Josh Morrissey. I adore everything about how that man plays hockey, how he handles himself, how he's open about his mental health. He's just a shining example of not only a really good defenseman, but a quality human being. And so, I mean, my two favorite Winnipeg Jets players are Josh Morrissey and Nikolai Ehlers. I'd love to see the cup go back to Denmark. I think that'd be really cool. But I think for everything that Josh Morrissey does and the season that he's had, there was a point where people were talking about his contract being terrible, and now it's very clearly one of the best contracts for a defenseman in the league. And I think he is one of the more underrated defensemen in the sense that, like, he doesn't get talked about the same way. Like, okay, Cale Makar and Quinn Hughes are kind of by themselves, but like he absolutely has to be in the discussion with guys like Victor Hedman and Roman Josi and Jacob Slavin and those kind of that sort of cluster of defensemen. Josh Morrissey is very much in that sort of next echelon of defensemen in the National Hockey League, and for everything that he does off the ice, I'd love to see him get rewarded with a Stanley Cup.
Yeah, Josh is an awesome guy, and I mean, if you want to talk about, like, where is he going to go with this? Guys who I've never seen a player jump from the conversation of being one of the worst contracts in the entire NHL to one of the best in such a short amount of time. The resurgence of this guy is unbelievably incredible, and if we're talking the same conversation about the Brendan Gallagher conversation, he also lost a parent very recently and has just been, nothing but solid and kind and an exemplary example of how you should treat people as a cornerstone player of an NHL franchise in a hockey market. Great guy, nothing but good things to say about him, so I totally echo that pick as well.
All right, let's go to the Dallas-Colorado series, starting with Dallas.
We're just skipping right over St. Louis, hey? I'm on board. We can...
We're going to skip over
Cam Fowler would be fine.
Cam Fowler.
Okay.
All right,
good for him.
Cool.
Moving on.
Yeah, I mean, let's be honest here. Like I don't think St. Louis. So we had to pick one upset for the entire first round, and I picked the Blues just because they were coming in super hot, and Connor Hellebuck has struggled in the playoffs. It kind of made a lot of sense to me. Like, okay, if there's gonna be an upset, I think that one or Minnesota getting Kaprizov and Ek back would be it. I mean, yeah, sure, anything can happen, but it's really hard to see St. Louis coming back with how the Jets are kind of playing and really stifling them. But yeah, I'd love to see Cam Fowler win a Stanley Cup. That guy was in Anaheim for...
And hasn't played a play in the NHL playoffs in 10 years because of playing with the Anaheim Ducks, right? It's a guy who, 100%.
It's a tough one. So, all right, let's go. Yeah, Dallas.
Dallas, I'm going to go with Matt Duchene. That's a guy who has had a really interesting career. Had some injury stuff, had some teams where he's bounced around and been horrible, but then other teams where he's been awesome, and he's just a really fascinating player. And listen, I don't know the guy or anything, but seems like a nice enough guy and whatever you could say off the ice. But he's played such a massive role on this incredible Dallas Stars forward group. And I think that it's so cool that he's kind of carved out a role for himself in this group and become such an instrumental part of that offense. And I'd love to see him win a cup. That'd be awesome. I like a lot of the guys in the Stars, but in terms of some of their older players, Matt Duchene is definitely the one that kind of stuck out for me on that roster.
Yeah, I mean, Duchene is always really thoughtful in his interviews, and that makes a lot of sense. Like, I'm certainly cheering for him. Cody Ceci is the guy I'm going to go with here. And the reason I'm going to do this is because when he played in Ottawa and Toronto, this guy got raked over the coals 6 ways to Sunday. And, it was bad. And let's face it, he was not very good in Toronto. But then he went to Edmonton, and, they went to the Cup final. And now he's in Dallas, and they're a really good team. If Cody Ceci's in your top 4, yeah, you're in some trouble. But if he's your 6, that's a really good 6. That is a quality defenseman, really nice. I know the family because I coached his brother at school. But Cody's, he's, again, similar to Duchene, thoughtful in his interviews. He takes a lot of flack and shows up to do media. Just kind of goes out of his way. He's involved. I know he's involved in a ton of charitable work, too. And I really do think that matters in terms of, how good of a human being you are. And so with Cody Ceci kind of bouncing around, taking a ton of flack, I think it'd be really cool to see him win a Stanley Cup for all of the nonsense that he's dealt with. Some deserved, some undeserved. I'd love to see that. All right, let's go Colorado.
Colorado, I have a couple of random, sort of more off the board picks. I'm going to go with Charlie Coyle as one of them. I actually really like Charlie Coyle as a player. I think he's kind of fun, and I like the testament of what he is in terms of Colorado's decision making this year and how they turned what was an AHL level roster at the beginning of the season, specifically in their forward group, to one of, if not the most dangerous team in the entire Western Conference. I applaud Jared Bednar and I applaud Joe Sakic for a really, really interesting past couple of months. And Charlie Coyle, I like the way he plays, and he's starting to play a bigger and more impactful in a positive way role with the Colorado Avalanche, even though it wasn't at the beginning. Kind of similar vibes to what I was saying before about Scott Laughton, where it was immediately I was oh, was this the right trade? But it's there's definitely still some smoke there, so it'll be interesting to see. And I'm going to give a shout out to Scott Wedgwood. I would love to see Scott Wedgwood get his name on a Stanley Cup if he would end up playing any games, or if that's, I don't know how it works with the backup goaltenders if they don't play in terms of who gets their names engraved on that cup. But Scott Wedgwood was the goalie for the Canadian World Junior team the first year I got really, really locked in on World Juniors, and I've always thought highly of him because of kind of what he represents to me. And again, also seems like a really funny guy. Seems nice. And so, it's kind of my off the board pick. Again, it's a little bit harder with some of these teams who have won in the last couple of years because, a lot of the guys, obviously Gabe Landeskog would be up there for so many folks and whatnot, but he's got a cup, so, it doesn't really fit the bill there. So I'm going to go with Charlie Coyle and Scott Wedgwood.
I'm going to go with Jonathan Drouin. And I'm going to do that because he came in as a really high pick. They got traded to Montreal, his home team basically, and everybody really wanted it to go well, and it didn't go well, and then he kind of fell off the map, and just really bounced around, had to sign like a PTO in Colorado. It's really worked out for him. He's playing with one of his best friends in Nathan McKinnon, and he's kind of one of those guys that has become really easy to root for. And like he's taken his leave of absence, and he's done a ton to kind of better himself, and not only just like mentally, because he spoke about how difficult like bouncing around was, and the mental toll that it took on him. But I like to see guys have that type of success. And in Colorado, he's really kind of found his little like spot in the lineup, and he looks really good. And like you said, like guys like McKinnon and McCarr and Landeskog have all won already. And so I would love to see Jonathan Drouin win a Stanley Cup with Colorado. All right, let's go to Vegas, who didn't misuse LTIR this year. Congratulations to them.
Yeah, Vegas was another hard one because a lot of that roster is guys who have won cups. So I'm going to go with a super easily my most off the board pick here. I'm going to go with my boy Bobby Hogg, Robert Hagg. Robert Hagg is a guy who's also received a ton of flack in, however long. And I put him into the Cody Ceci camp of probably rightfully so because Robert Hagg has not been, an all-star NHL defenseman, exactly, if we're going to go with that. But he's a guy that, I don't know, I've always kind of maybe rooted for in that weird way where it's like I almost felt bad for him because of how hard everyone was on him when he was playing in like Buffalo and different places like that. So, I didn't really know who to pick here, so I was like, you know what, I've always had such a soft spot for Robert Hagg, so I'm going to go with him.
I like it. I'm going to go with Teenage Mutant Ninja Hurdle. I just, ever since he scored the between the legs goal in his rookie season, I've loved watching this guy, and as a kid, it was too late for me to stay up and watch him, but I've loved tracking his career past that, and playing in San Jose, through like the good years, but then through the really, really thin years. I love to see a guy like that get a chance. He looks reinvigorated in Vegas after his knee injury. And he's just kind of one of those guys that like always has a smile on his face, isn't causing any trouble. Like there's no nonsense associated with him. And he's a hell of a hockey player. So I would love to see him win. Let's go to Minnesota.
Minnesota, I think a decently easy pick for a lot of folks would be Matt Zuccarello. Another guy who's like, I feel like considering the market that he's played in for a good chunk of his career, pretty not spoken about, not really making headlines, but a really, really solid high-end NHL player that I've really liked his game for much of his year, especially spending so much time in the Central Division here. I've watched a lot of Matt Zuccarello hockey over the last few years, and I'd love to see him win. And, another kind of random's the wrong word, but another country to bring the cup back to that's not as represented in modern NHL, circles and whatnot, like the Canada and the US and some of the Scandinavian countries are. So I'd love to see Matt Zuccarello win a Stanley Cup if Minnesota were to make a push.
I'm going way off the board here, and I'm going with two guys that I've worked with, John Hines and Jason King. the head coach and the guy that coaches the power play. I mean, two of my favorite people in hockey. John was a major reason why I got hired in New Jersey, and like kept in touch. Just a really, really good human being, and took a lot of flack in New Jersey. And I thought unnecessarily that roster was not good, and so I would absolutely love to see him win. And then Jason King is one of the only people I worked with in Vancouver that I liked. And him, Bruce, Clarkey, maybe like two other people. But like Jason's ideas for a power play are so out of the box that like I've heard coaches be like, okay, whoa, like what are we doing here? And the fact that John, and only because I know what these ideas were and what he wasn't allowed to do, John has let him do it, and it has resulted in the Kirill Kaprizov, Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy, Marco Rossi breakout situation. And so I love to see people who believe in each other succeed. And Jason was really good to me, teaching me different things about power play concepts. And I'd love to see him rewarded for his sort of really forward, kind of outside the box thinking. So those are my guys in Minnesota. All right, last series. Let's go with the Edmonton Oilers.
If anyone knows me, they know that I just simply don't wish the Edmonton Oilers well in any capacity, but let's go with a non-Edmonton Oiler in Jeff Skinner. That's a guy who I feel like it's pretty easy to root for, whether it's the individual goal songs or the fact that, you know, there are fully functioning human beings who have lived long childhoods, who have many more memories than have happened in the time that Jeff Skinner has played in the NHL and not made the playoffs. Like, holy smokes, it's been a rough go for that guy. And, you know, anyone who's a career Buffalo Sabre, I do have
Prayers
leaps
up.
and bounds of prayers up to give for them, whatever. So, yeah, Jeff Skinner is easy enough to root for. And, again, another guy who kind of was a weird fit in the Edmonton Oilers lineup at first, but I definitely think that there's some juice there, and we've seen the juice a little bit. So if anyone on that team has to win a cup, I guess I'd be happy it's him. I don't really care about the rest of them. I don't really wish the rest of any of them well. But go Jeff Skinner, I guess. Woo.
Yeah, Jeff Skinner is like the easiest guy
Yeah.
in the entirety of the playoffs to root for at this
Right.
point, because this is his first playoff game and he's like in his mid-30s. I am gonna go with the very obvious, given where I'm from, and that would be Connor McDavid. Not only do I want Connor to win because I want Connor to win, I think the one thing people in hockey can agree on is if we want our sport to grow, our best players need to win.
Yeah.
And Connor McDavid winning the Stanley Cup would be objectively good for the growth of the game. So I would like to see him win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
that's always my my thing with the Edmonton Oilers. Like, last year, obviously, they were so close, and it was like, I know every year we go through the motions in the offseason of people trying to be a little bit more like the Stanley Cup champs, where it's like when Vegas wins, it's like, maybe we don't need goalies anymore. And then when Florida wins, it's like, oh, like, maybe we need, everyone needs a
best
Matthew Tkachuk.
goalie.
Right, no, it's like, oh my gosh. And my one thing is that, like, if the Edmonton Oilers win a Stanley Cup, if they had won it last year, and even more so if they are to win it this year, it would be really cool to see the league overcorrect in the sense of, I've never seen a more flawed team that is so unbelievably competitive, because if you just get good players, you can hang. And that's the one part that's really easy to root for when it comes to Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. It's like you can pick apart so many different components of that roster, but at the end of the day, if you have the two best players in the entire NHL on your team, like, you can make things work. And I feel like if we leaned more into that talent, it would be better for hockey across the board. So that's always my silver lining with the Edmonton Oilers.
Agreed. All right, let's go to the Kings.
Gotta give a shout out to my French Canadian king, Philippe Danault. I would love to see that guy win a cup again. Another guy who's not the flashiest by any means, bit of a human eraser in terms of what his contribution is to any team he's ever been on. And I love watching the LA Kings play. I'm kind of obsessed with the LA Kings. I think they're so much fun, and I have been really interested in watching them play hockey. If you're someone like me who likes to watch hockey outside of the markets that they have skin in the game in, because they want to learn about, like, hockey structure and different things and different units, all that, the LA Kings are an awesome team to watch because they play such structured hockey and they have great details and they are really, really fun to watch. So I love the Kings, and Phil Deneau is a big part of that. I love the way they kind of construct his line around him, and, you know, a lot of the guys, well, some of the bigger guys in that roster do have cups, like, you know, guys like Andrei Kopitar and stuff like that. So Philip Deneau is the one that kind of sticks out for me.
All right, I'm going off the board here, and I'm going with a young kid. I'm going with Quentin Byfield. And the reason I'm going with Quentin Byfield is because he played hockey with my brother growing up. And we talk about good human beings. This is a kid that growing up would go to other people's houses and, like, you know how young boys can be. They can be super goddamn annoying, right? This kid would come up and put everyone's dishes in the dishwasher so that he didn't leave a mess in someone else's house. This is the type of human being we're talking about here. And so he is so easy to root for. Whenever he's at home, he goes on the ice with the kids. This will stay with me forever. There is one of the outdoor rinks that's kind of like community run, and it's strictly for pond hockey. Both Byfield and McDavid were home for Christmas a couple of years ago, and it was just as we were coming out of COVID, and they decided one night, without, like, telling anybody, that they were going to show up and just like play pond hockey like with the kids, and the kids were crazy excited and nobody wanted to stop playing, and finally it got like super late, and traditionally like you're supposed to shovel off the rink when you're done, so that like it can be flooded and used the next day. But these kids like were staying out so late, their parents just like pulled them off the ice, and like no one was going to shovel. And doesn't Quentin Byfield pick up a shovel and shovel the rink with Connor McDavid? Like, we're talking about two dudes in the National Hockey League shoveling off their local rink because the kids were so excited to play for them. So it's things like that where not only have I known Q since he was like 5 years old, he's just a really good dude, and I'd love to see him win. People were doubting him in like the first couple years of his career, and now it's like super clear that he is going to be one of the best power forwards in the entire league for the next like 10 years. And so I'd love to see that kind of percolate and happen. So those are the guys we want to win the Stanley Cup. We're going to save the Chris Drury, Lou Lamoriello conversation for next week. I know Mike, given that Lou worked for the Toronto Maple Leafs and Mike was covering the team while Lou was the GM, Mike is going to have a lot to say about that.
Who, Mike? Really?
Yeah, I know, right? And maybe I'll have my fiance on the podcast next week because he's a Rangers fan. And he has some things to say about Chris Drury. So,
oh boy.
We'll do that. But in the meantime, we're gonna take a small break, and then we're gonna come back with we're gonna do this here on Puck Social for the next 8, 10, however many weeks this is. We're going to do updates on the Hockey Canada trial of the London, Ontario, because of what happened in London, because it's very important. And as a podcast who talks about hockey culture and trying to make hockey a safer place, it would be wrong to not cover it. So I'm going to come back with an update just on kind of what's happened. So trigger warning for that. But in the meantime, thank you, Lyss, for joining us. Tell everyone where they can find your work.
Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place right now because Winnipeg Jets playoff hockey kind of dictates my life. The last couple of years, it's only dictated it for about all of 5 games, but looks like we're definitely going to get more than 5 games this year, so that's an exciting time here in Winnipeg. So I'm on Winnipeg Sports Talk on Sunday Live, doing shows every Sunday morning. We also do pop-up content here and there. We're live from practice. We're live post-game. We're doing all kinds of fun stuff. And then I'm also over at Chell Chit Chat. We're kind of in a bit of a lull right now because we wrapped up the first season. And with playoff hockey going on right now, we got lots of other stuff on the plate right now. But when the off-season comes up and folks are looking for new hockey content, that's when we're going to come back out of the woodwork and give you some more resources to talk about, how you can grow, and whether it be your career, your fandom, just being involved in hockey spaces. That's what we're here to do. So check out Chell Chit Chat wherever you stream your podcasts.
Perfect. Thanks, Lyss, for joining us. And as I said, major trigger warning after the break. Please take care of yourself. And if you don't want the updates on the trial, by all means, this is your time to tune out. We would never want to trigger any feelings in any of our listeners. We love you all. It's just about kind of having a conversation and making sure that people are updated. So thank you so much. If you listen to Puck Social, you know that Mike and Rachel have trouble sleeping. Me in particular. I have tried so many sleep aids. I don't like medication, so I won't do that. And then I tried some sleep, and honestly, it really helped out. It's an all-natural powder that you take half an hour before bed. It has 5 core ingredients to help you sleep better. It's got vitamin B6, magnesium, L-theanine, GABA, and melatonin, all combined into a solid-tasting powder. You stir it through some water, and you drink it. And I have noticed my sleep tracker. My sleep has improved by more than 25% since I started using Some Sleep. Go to getsome.com, GETSOM.com, and use the code PUCK at checkout for 10% off your first order. Trust me, guys, I wouldn't be advertising for this if I didn't really love it. We're back, and as a reminder, we said this before the break, but this comes with a major trigger warning for sexual assault. At Puck Social, we believe it's important to stay up to date on the Hockey Canada trial of the 2018 alleged sexual assault of EM in a London, Ontario hotel room. We are trying to shift hockey culture as a podcast and be a more welcoming show. And in order to do that, sometimes we have to talk about the tough stuff. So if you need to tune out, that's totally understandable. This is a significantly triggering topic, but we believe it's important to stay up to date on what's happening. The trial covers an incident that allegedly occurred in 2018 after the Hockey Canada Gala and Golf fundraiser. 5 players, Michael McLeod, Dylan Dubé, Carter Hart, Alex Formenton, and Cal Foote, are on trial for sexual assault. Michael McLeod is facing 2 charges. And we're just going to provide updates on each show at the end so that everybody can kind of stay up to date with what's happening. So the first week was this week, and there was a lot that happened for a trial that just got underway. A jury was selected on Tuesday, and opening statements happened on Wednesday. And we have some reporting of what was said in the courtroom, and I'm going to read it because not everyone knows what happened. So this case, on Wednesday, the Crown started its opening statement. All 5 players have pled not guilty to the charges. That's why we're having a trial. They are entitled to due process under Canadian law. And it is important to point out that under Canadian law, which is much different than American law, for this specific reason, there is a publication ban on different things, which means we will not get certain details that we usually would get in the American justice system. There is a publication ban on the name of the victim. There is also a publication ban on any procedural issues. So if something happens outside of the jury's presence, the media is not allowed to report on it at all. And that's not ideal, especially in such a high-profile case, because it makes it seem like things could be hidden. It is really to protect the victim and, in this case, the defendants. And while that may not sit well with a lot of people, they are innocent until proven guilty. So let's get into the opening statement. Heather Donkers is the Crown prosecutor, and she says this is a case about consent, and equally important, this is a case about what is not consent. It's not about whether EM said no or left the situation. It's about whether she agreed to each and every instance of sexual touching that took place that night. And that is true. Consent is key in sexual assault cases. So when we look at this, the Crown lays out that the court will hear that the victim, who was 20 at the time, was at Jack's bar with friends. Jack's is a very famous bar in London. That same night, the Canadian World Junior Hockey team had been at a gala and then went to Jack's following the gala. A few of the players chatted up the victim, including McLeod, and the victim got separated from her friends and she started dancing with McLeod. At this point, that all of this is standard. Like, this happens at a bar all the time. The jury will see surveillance video from Jack's that night, and they'll see Dylan Dubé and Michael McLeod dancing with the victim. She had about 8 drinks at the bar, and others were also drinking. McLeod and EM left the bar and went to the Delta Hotel, where McLeod and his teammates were staying. They had sex, and that's not the issue. It is believed that this was consensual sex. But soon after that, the atmosphere in the room changed. So she's at the bar, she's dancing with McLeod, dances a little bit with Dubé, and the Crown is alleging that they went back to McLeod's hotel room and had consensual sex. This is where it gets very ugly. According to the Crown, the victim says she saw McLeod on his phone texting people. The jury will see texts that include a message he sent to a group chat asking, and I quote, "Who wants to be in a 3-way quick? 209, Mikey," as in room 209. Not only is that a disgusting thing to be putting in a group chat, but you've already had sex with her. What are we doing here, Mike? Mike McLeod went into the hallway and invited people into the room. The jury will hear EM was on the bed, naked, under the covers. More and more men started arriving in room 209, and up to 10 men in the room at different points during the night. The victim will testify that she felt drunk, surprised by what was happening, and was uncertain on how to react. Throughout the night, the Crown says she went along with what the men wanted and what she felt they expected of her because she was drunk, uncomfortable, and didn't know what would happen if she did anything else. And this is where a lot of people like to say, oh, she could have left at any time. She could have done XYZ. She could have said this. When you're around 10 men who are all over 6 feet tall and pretty muscular, they're going to be professional athletes, saying no and saying, I don't really want to do this, is not really an option. It's more about how you feel, and if you feel coerced, in Canada, that does not qualify as consent. Here is where we get more details. The Crown says that others in the room will testify about what happened in room 209. So 5 are charged, but up to 10 were in the room, which means it is very likely that at least some of those players who were in the room when the assault allegedly happened are going to testify about what happened. Each of the 5 accused had sexual contact with the victim without her voluntary agreement and specific acts that took place. Specifically, without consent, the Crown says McLeod, Hart, and Dubé obtained oral sex from her. Dubé slapped her on the buttocks, and Formenton had vaginal sex with her in the bathroom without consent. Also without her consent, Cal Foote did the splits while naked over EM's face and grazed his genitals over her face and spit on her. McLeod also had vaginal sex one more time with the victim without her consent, according to the Crown. He faces an additional charge of being party to the offense because he, quote, assisted and encouraged his teammates to engage sexually with the victim, knowing she had not consented. So he has the sexual assault charge that the other 4 have, but McLeod also has the you're the ringleader charge of this whole situation, and that is particularly disgusting. So those are some of the details that we received, and generally speaking, consent is, it has to be, it's a yes or it's a no. It can't just be, oh, I thought this, I thought that. And if you're going through the motions or you feel coerced or you feel scared, in Canada, that immediately falls into the not consensual side of the equation. So that is where things go sideways. After the fact, the victim left the hotel in tears, called a friend, and cried in the shower. McLeod texted her after she contacted police asking her, what can you do to make this go away? So again, hockey culture, can you sweep this under the rug? The answer here is always no, just to be clear. There was also a group chat where some members of the team, including the 5 accused, spoke about what happened in the hotel room, and that there was an investigation to make sure they all said the same thing to investigators, which at that point was Hennon Hutchinson, LLP, who Hockey Canada had retained to do this investigation, as well as speaking to police. Dylan Dubé and Cal Foote asked teammates to leave out what they had each done to the victim. This case, as the Crown says, is not about how you believe you would act or you would think someone should or shouldn't act in a scenario like this one. So when you think about it, it's very clear they know they did something wrong, or there wouldn't be a group chat so that all of them could get their story straight and figure out what to say to police and investigators, and there wouldn't be 2 of the guys asking if other guys could leave that stuff out. Then there's called what's an agreed statement of facts, which means both the Crown and the defense have agreed these are true and the jury doesn't need to wonder who is telling the truth here. Here are those facts. Room 209 was registered to Michael McLeod and Alex Formenton. The date it happened was June the 19th, 2018. Surveillance video from Jack's Bar and the Delta Hotel are authentic and admitted. 5 videos from Drake Batherson's phone taken inside Jack's Bar are authentic and admitted. McLeod gave police 2 videos from his phone in 2019. The first was taken at 3:35 a.m. and the second at 4:26 a.m. Those are likely the videos we heard about where she was, quote unquote, giving consent. In 2022, so nearly 4 years after this occurred, police got 5 Snapchat videos taken at Jack's bar from Michael McLeod's phone that night. So that is what we have so far in terms of the details of the case. Then things got very interesting. So a detective was scheduled to be the first witness to testify as the Crown began to start calling their witnesses. And it is expected that multiple members of the team are expected to testify, and some of those players are currently playing in the playoffs. They are going to be allowed to testify via Zoom. But let's get something straight. There has been a lot of people talking about, oh, how can they testify if they're in the playoffs? A playoff game does not supersede a criminal court proceeding. If they are required to be in court, they may miss a game. That's just how it works. Your hockey team does not supersede a criminal court proceeding in any country. So there's a lunch break, and then it's reported on Wednesday afternoon that we have a procedural delay. And in Canada, when there's a procedural delay, none of the details, and a procedural delay is usually when the judge and the lawyers have to discuss something that happened, whether it's an error or they found out something about a member of the jury, they have new evidence. There's a lot of different things that could be a procedural delay here. And the judge said it was so important that she needed the night to think about it. So she sent the jury home. And because the jury was not present for when these discussions between the lawyers and the judge were occurring, it's not allowed to be publicized. And that's a problem in the Canadian justice system, especially when you have high-profile cases. I understand the protection of the defendants. But on Friday morning, a mistrial was declared, which means they have to start all over again. It is not a commentary on an acquittal or a sign of guilt. It's just a procedural error was made that impacts the ability to have a fair trial, and they need to start over again. Because of the laws in Canada, the media cannot report on why there was a mistrial. However, a group of media consortium, if you call it, have asked, because it is such a high-profile case and we are moving to a new trial, if they can report on some of the reasons for the mistrial. So we're moving into a second trial. The jury is going to start being selected on Friday, April the 25th, with the hope that the trial can get underway next week. That is the latest we have from a London, Ontario courtroom, and we will provide updates on each episode, and you can follow our Twitter, where we will be discussing it as well. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of your mental health, and be kind to each other.